Well, we're very fortunate today to have Daphne Cook with us, and we're going to talk a little bit about all the experience she's had with the hemp. And she started here a couple of years ago, and so she's going to tell a little bit of history about what we went through on the hemp
Mhm.
and what we're going through. So, Daphne, just kind of give us a look on from the back and a little bit of the history of what you
Yeah,
see is happening here in the hemp industry.
absolutely. So Bill and I have been working together since I want to say 2023, 2023 that
Hmm.
summer. So this is our third summer doing hemp together. Um, I came on as an intern. I got started doing the data for everything with VIPs. Um, and then my first week here, he and I took a trip and we went to Texas and Arkansas. Did we go somewhere else? Oklahoma?
Oklahoma, we
Hmm.
made a big loop,
We did.
and it was about a 2 or 3 day trip.
Yep.
Just looking at the industry as a whole, and
Yes.
I guess one of the most impressive things is when we were down in Texas.
Yeah. In
Uh,
Wichita Falls
just
at
something,
Panda Biotech. Was
Panda
that it?
Project, yeah.
They had this huge 500,000 square feet, I think, something like that,
That was one building.
facility. Yeah,
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 yeah.
just one building. It's a hemp processing facility. I think it's supposed to be the biggest in the States.
It's one of the biggest in the world.
That's right.
Yeah, so
Right.
they claim
Yeah.
big in the United States, but
Hmm.
they were involved in power plants and had a lot of
Mm,
money, and so they decided to spend it on research on hemp and actually building products.
yeah, we're all for that.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
very pro that. Yeah, yeah, that was a beautiful facility. And then we went to Botanic Wellness. Was that who we saw?
Yep, we
Uh
went
huh.
to McNair, well, and that was in Spiral, Oklahoma,
Yep.
and we visited with them on all the things they were producing.
Absolutely.
Uh, just just a little bit of a note, that company is took bankruptcy out of business,
Ooh.
but
They have a new name now.
they have a new name, and
Green Precision?
yeah,
No.
that they started back up,
Yeah.
and they're basically doing silverware. I said
Oh.
silverware,
Like
plastic,
hemp
but yeah,
plastic?
yeah, plastic.
I didn't realize
So,
that.
well, they've been really good to us.
Yes, they have. Yeah, they have.
We it was a financial hiccup with them, but they've been more than fair, and they've treated us really good. So we're
Absolutely.
back in the investment with
Good.
the plastic silverware,
Mhm.
and believing in what they're trying to accomplish in hemp.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Because that's the best kind of plastic you can get is hemp biodegradable plastic.
that's what we think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what we think. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so that trip was my first real introduction into hemp, and so we jumped right into it immediately. And I think that was the best way for me to start
Mhm.
was going on a trip. We got closer. That
Mhm.
was a good trip, but also it was really good to like just hear so much about hemp and then just because I didn't have a bunch of knowledge about it beforehand. And so just going seeing different processes because like there was the actual processing in Texas and then they did like the oil processing in Oklahoma. And then I don't know if it was that trip or later on we went to Augusta, Kansas with Sarah Stevens with Midwest Hemp Technology. She is our close, yeah,
She's a cool lady, and
she's awesome.
she's dedicated to the hemp industry. And
Heavily. Yeah, yeah.
and one of the things that I mean, I'll reflect a little bit
Sure.
into your history because it came along a little. We've been doing this since 2019,
Hmm.
and actually, I worked with your sister for a year.
I think the year before.
Yeah, the year
Uh
before,
huh.
you know, I had. So we've been working with interns because I was really enjoyed working with my grandchildren and seeing if they would be a part of the big picture and it seems like Daphne's kind of taken hold, and so that
Yeah.
was started 2019, and we've kind of wallered through and
Hmm.
lost money, and then you didn't experience SLU, the
No.
university, you did experience Babu and Lincoln,
Yep. Absolutely.
and so
Absolutely.
those are two universities that we were working with
Hmm.
over those last few years. And so that was always a little bit of a challenge trying to figure out I think our big deal is SOPs and ROIs.
Absolutely.
That's what we're trying to accomplish.
Absolutely.
How does it work for a farmer? How does he make money?
Yes.
So,
And people are doing great kind of research at universities, but it's just not geared towards farmers. You
well,
know.
it's not applicable.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
something that's probably going to make a difference. I'm going to say down the road.
Yes.
Down the road. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's going to be valuable, but for the farmers, for the people who are actually out there growing it, they need some other kinds of information, such as the SOPs and the ROI,
And they
which
need
we can.
markets, and they need a place
Yeah,
to sell it. And of course,
absolutely.
if you're going to compete with soybeans and
Mhm.
corn and other commodity crops, you're going to have something that produces good
Yeah,
incomes without heavy expenses.
absolutely.
And the one things that we've dealt with, and
Mhm.
Daphne's dealt with that a lot too, but trying to get federal crop insurance and
Yeah.
trying to get, even where you can bank. If
Yes.
people in the
Yeah.
hemp business, they think first thing they think of, you're smoking pot and doing marijuana. Well, none of that's
It's not the
factual.
same.
Yeah.
No.
So
No.
we're doing it's totally different, and it's a great crop. And I didn't mean to
Absolutely. So
steal your thunder here, but
no,
yeah.
we are sharing thunder. We're
Okay. All right.
synergizing. Uh huh. Uh huh. Yeah.
So
But.
early on,
Mhm.
and so then those first couple of years,
Mhm.
what was your biggest wow factor?
About him?
Hmm.
Oh, easily, I think it was how environmentally friendly hemp is. That was the main hook that hooked me in and still has me,
Hmm.
is just how eco-friendly hemp is. Not just to grow because it does clean up soil, it requires less inputs into the ground, it requires less water. That's great reason to grow why it would be environmentally friendly, but how it can sequester per acre more carbon than an acre of trees.
So you could honestly
Yeah.
say, graduating from MU,
Uh-huh.
coming out with a degree,
Uh-huh.
and having some opinions,
I do.
and then the hook was
Uh-huh.
we nicknamed Daphne. We call her Daphne Do Right here. So she wants everything perfect. She wants everything right. She don't believe necessarily gray. She's kind of a black and
Yeah.
white, but she's getting into the gray area more now when she's actually,
Uh-huh.
in that.
Well, you gotta make things work.
Right,
Yeah.
right, right,
But
right.
making sure you're doing things right is you have to. You have to make sure you do it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Especially in hemp.
mm-hmm,
People are
mm-hmm.
already suspicious of hemp. They're like, well, any kind of cannabis is gonna be there's
Bad,
some yeah,
bad,
yeah.
bad,
They're
bad.
like there's a bad
Yeah,
connotation with
I put
it.
my hat on and I get
Hmm.
high. I
Yeah,
got a
it's
hemp
like
hat.
the hemp hats. They're like,
It's
oh,
a-
is it traveling into your brain? It's like, yeah, actually it is. That's very scientific. But no, just making sure you're doing everything as right as you can in an industry that's already going to be more under investigation. I don't know what the right word would be,
Well, we're
but
pretty regulated,
yes.
and everything you do is regulated. And of
Hmm.
course, you can't borrow money.
Yeah.
You got to come up with your own cash flow. You can't have a checking account.
Hmm.
If you do something, they charge you 4 or 5% more than
Yes,
to
they
do anybody
do.
else.
Hmm.
So for the farmer, it's been a real struggle
Yeah.
because uh, even though it's even though it's legal in the state of Missouri, it's not been USDA has not blessed it yet. So basically, you can't get bank loans. I mean, so
It's
it's
really hard.
so difficult
Hmm.
to get started in the hemp industry and trying to
Yeah,
find a product that'll
absolutely.
cash flow, make a good SOP and a good ROI.
And it makes it harder as well because it was illegal or basically illegal since the 30s, and so people lost
Mm.
how to farm hemp. They don't that all
Yeah.
the practices were lost
Mm-hmm.
because almost 100 years, like, of
Mm-hmm.
course you're not going to know how to do it. Technology's changed,
Mm-hmm.
everything's changed. And so in addition to not being able to get loans or all that kind of stuff, you're also taking a risk on just farming it itself,
Sure.
which is why I think it's
Sure.
so useful that, like, you've been farming for over 6 decades,
Right.
and so, like, you have all this knowledge. You've worked with soybeans and doing like research in soybeans and soybean genetics and all that kind of stuff. So it just makes sense that you'd be the person to get into hemp research geared towards farmers.
Well, we're gonna. Anything else about our history that you think
There
is
must be.
relevant?
There must be. Um,
Well, the one
yeah,
thing that we learned, we use that catch line everywhere, is
hemping ain't
hemp
easy.
and ain't easy.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
then the other thing that really brought, and we'll talk about this on our next section because we're
Mhm.
going to have a little break here,
Oh,
but
yep.
the one thing that you brought to the table, which was, missing, is that uh, due diligence on
Mm,
using the VIP system to
mm,
collect data.
mhm.
And the data collection for hemp is huge,
Absolutely.
or data collection for anything, because you don't know
Mhm.
how to do something if you don't know what worked and what worked last year.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
your position, and that's what helped us. And when we come back, we'll talk about the new license with USDA and some of the cool things. And again, a lot of the stuff that's made us where we're at today and kept us in the business is Daphne's enthusiasm and enthusiasm with a lot of young people. And so We'll just kind of close with this first section and saying, hey, Hempin ain't easy,
Hemping ain't easy.
and
But
and Daphne Do Right's making it work, or
without,
helping make it work.
well, I was about to say without Wild Bill, that was his nickname, then none of this would be happening. None of it
Well,
would be possible.
thank you very much, and we'll be right back. Well, we just want to have a short commercial in between our speaker today. We had Daphne Cook, and Daphne is all about the hemp program, USDA. She's been very, very good on trying to put that whole thing together. We really believe heavily in hemp and the cannabis plant on all the benefits. And Daphne and her company is just doing a great job to promote all that. One of the quick things I would do is I would show you, we're going to have what we call these remediation sticks. And these are just things that you can look at. We had some people from the schools out and looked at these remediation sticks and how heavy they are. So this is where we put a lot of the heavy metals and the metals that we would mine out of the soil. So that's one of our goals. But anyway, I just wanted to promote Daphne and what she's trying to do environmentally, make things friendlier, clean up the soil, do all the great things for our country and our rural communities that will benefit everybody. And just come on down to Ag City, meet Daphne sometime and what all she's trying to accomplish. We'll be right back with our program. Well, we're back with Daphne and Daphne Do Right and all about the hemp. And so now we're going to talk about, we talked a little bit about the past.
Hmm.
Now we're going to talk about what we see today is happening and where we see the future in the hemp industry going.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
so you're taking away, Daphne.
Yeah. So I guess I'll get into what we're doing today, which is we still have our native prairie commercial license, where we're like growing hemp for hemp canes, remediation sticks, things like that. But the new part this year would be our USDA research license. So as you may have heard, I don't know, we have a USDA research license. We are the first non-university to have a hemp research license
We think,
to our
to our
knowledge.
knowledge.
That's
Yeah,
what we've been
yeah, yeah.
told by certain people
Yeah.
at the USDA. But to our knowledge, we are the first people, and if not, we're up there. But we are doing research that is pretty similar in some ways to what we've been doing in the past, such as trying to find ways, as we've said before, SOPs, ROIs, trying to make it work for farmers.
Right.
But what's new this year is a new focus on soil remediation. And so we are planting hemp per usual, but we're also doing a couple different bioremediators that can help pull toxins, minerals, metals out of the soil, and then they kind of uptake into the plants. And then you can chop down those plants, it stays out of the soil, and there might even be a way to use the minerals in that plant, process that plant to get that. So the most eco-friendly way to mine, basically, if that's the goal. But for soil remediation, it really does just clean up the soil with the hemp's real long roots, and we're doing sunflowers, a couple different types of mustard, um, and we're really excited about it.
Yeah, and of course that's been what's really cool is we've actually learned how to make some money doing hemp. Uh, and we did
Only
this
took a
year.
few
This is the
years.
first year actually we've been able to really make some money.
Mm,
And but it's not been easy.
of course.
And again, I'll do a shout out
Hmm.
for Sarah and Midwest Hemp
Yeah.
Technology.
Hmm.
She's been a great partner with us. We've
Huge.
had many different relationships. Most of them have went and gone, and they've been here to sell us some seed or
Hmm.
mine us, and we didn't get much information out of those folks. We got a lot of experience,
Absolutely.
and which was good.
It is. It's necessary.
But a lot of the things that you've been going through is what the future looks like. And now we have an end goal,
Yes.
and our end goal is healthy soil,
Yes.
healthy environment,
Absolutely.
making the planet better,
Mhm.
and doing it in an efficient way, but doing it through plants
Mhm.
instead of through chemical applications or using the heavy metal fertilizers. And
Absolutely.
it's not to say, hey, we're 100% organic because that's not true. but we do lean where we don't use things that are damaging our soil and the
Yes,
quality of our soil.
absolutely.
So that's the big thing on hemp is
Yes.
that we're trying, and then of course the university relationship. So we've kind of challenged universities a little
Hmm.
bit different because the ones we were working with were they were way, way, way smarter than us, way, way smarter than us,
Yeah.
but they couldn't do an SOP and they couldn't do an
Yeah.
ROI.
Yeah.
Now, as far as the all the big words and all the great things and all the smart people, they were absolutely there. The brilliant people.
Absolutely.
But
100%.
when you're talking to a farmer, he wants to know one thing: how much, what's it going to cost?
Hmm.
What am I going to make? How am I going to sell it? How do I get it from? I mean, we're pretty basic out here in rural America. We want to just figure out how to make a profit. Now,
Make a living. Hmm.
we do want to make our environments better.
Absolutely.
I don't know a farmer if he has a choice
Hmm.
that he won't, you know, have cleaner water. But,
Absolutely.
but I mean, it's
It just has
it's
to make financial
well, he's got
sense.
to
You
be in
can't.
business.
Yes, of
He's got to be in
course. Can't
business.
put them out of business at the same time.
Well, yeah, and
Yeah.
so big ag and big chemical companies and big corporations. It's not that they're bad, but they're not necessarily totally for the farmer's best interest.
Yeah.
They need the farmer,
Of
so they're going to
course.
do some nice things. But I think our method of looking at stuff, one of the things, and you can touch base on this if
For
you want
sure.
to, but we believe that underneath the ground there is valuable minerals and valuable things.
Hmm.
So that's where Daphne, and she's worked with another guy here, Cole Tyson. When we can get him, he's always good, but he's a busy guy.
Yeah.
Um, but we work with other people, and everybody wants to. Underneath the soil, there's value.
Hmm.
We're trying to figure out how to extract that.
Yes. So that's something that can add to a farmer's bottom line is if you can extract those things from the soil, and especially if those things that are valuable to us are damaging the soil. So
Hmm.
that's a win-win
Hmm.
situation. And so something that's been one of the main focuses this year. We call it phytomining with those bioremediator, those plants. So in order to get those out of the ground, the most the way that makes the most sense for a farmer is to use crops. Use
Hmm.
crops to get that out of the
Hmm.
ground. You will further process those plants afterwards, and it will not only improve your crop yield in the future because now you have better soil, and now people will have some like healthier food based off of not taking in some of those harmful things into the plant. So it's taking it into the plant. We're going to process that plant, and that's just another way for farmers to make some money, especially with hemp. And we're doing as much as we can with that too, finding different ways to
Right.
do different varieties or different kinds of hemp, grain, fiber, carbon credits, phyto
Bingo.
mining,
Hmm.
absolutely. So trying to find as many ways as
So
possible.
there's and you mentioned carbon credits,
Hmm.
and see, the one thing that we did get worked out last year. I mean, we actually got paid carbon credits last year on our small acreage.
Yeah.
So I mean, and so there are things. I don't know how the carbon credit business is going to go long term, but I know that right now I think our focus is, and actually, we have a university coming today
Yeah.
to look at the research. And of course, what Daphne is doing and what we're trying to do is what value do we have
Hmm.
in the marketplace to generate a SOP
Hmm.
that's low cost that can turn into an ROI of profit that competes against corn, soybeans, wheat, and other commodities that our farmers are growing.
Absolutely.
So those things are kind of on, I think that's in our heart to
Yeah.
try to get that accomplished. So I think one of our big projects right
Hmm.
now is we know how to grow it.
Yep.
Last year we got some stuff up to 14,000 pounds
Yes.
per
Per
acre,
acre. Yeah.
and I think our average on our fields, which
Hmm.
was a little under that, it
Hmm.
was about half of that.
Yep.
It was about 7,000 pounds. The,
But that was with a different variety than we're doing this year
yeah,
as
and
well.
and that's one of the things that
Hmm.
you've learned and you've brought to the table, and that's what we're using the very highest yielding
Hmm.
fiber.
Yeah.
And so our plants look phenomenal
They
this year.
really do.
Our
You've done a
research
great
looks
job.
absolutely
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
So that's all cool stuff.
Mhm.
And so by the end of this year, hopefully
Mhm.
we've figured out what's underneath the soil. We think we're going to have to probably burn that product.
Yeah.
We think we've got to get it in a way that we can actually mine
Yep.
and maybe the ashes that
Yeah.
we're working with. So that's the things we're asking these universities to
Mhm.
step out and help us with.
Yeah, and they've been pretty forthright so
They have
far. Like
been.
they've
They
been
have been.
helping. Yeah.
We perked their interest because
Yeah.
we're looking at the mountain from a different direction.
Absolutely.
So we're
Absolutely.
so
It's a
we're
new
trying to figure it
perspective.
out. Yep.
Yep. Yep. And I think it's something that maybe they're not as used to, but it will be just so beneficial for them and for us just to have these very different perspectives trying to come at the same problem.
Amen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's right. Well, Daphne, I tell you what, this has been great.
I had a great time.
I think as we close,
Hmm.
we're going to probably leave them with. I know you're always going to say Hempin ain't easy,
Well, yeah, I mean, come
but
on.
as we close, is there a special thought you would like to leave our listeners with, other than
Sure. Besides humping ain't
you
easy.
know, it easy? Yeah,
I mean, it is a true statement, but I would just say hemp can be for anyone, especially I know that we're geared towards farmers, um, and that's a great place for us to be geared towards. But hemp is usable in all walks of life, however you may want to use it or consume it, food, oil, that kind of stuff. Remediation walking
mhm.
sticks, those are great too.
Right,
But
right,
even just watching the podcast, giving hemp your attention, learning something new, I think that's huge and it has a lot of potential. And with it being just up and coming again, especially after the
right.
2018 Farm Bill, um, it's really important. It could solve a lot of our problems if we really invest into hemp. And so that's something that that you've been working
Sure.
on for a long time. And so that's why hemp ain't easy, and that's why it's worth it as well.
Well, I think it is worth it. And Daphne, again, as we close, this has been a labor of love. It's not been profitable. My wife says, "Why don't you take up golfing, or
Uh huh.
go buy a boat, go fishing?" But anyway, I've done this all my life. I
Yeah.
love it. I love agriculture. I love farmers. I
Mhm.
love what they do to this.
Yeah.
What a great country we have. And so all those things are just pretty cool. And
Yeah.
when you look back in the years, you can say, "Hey, uh, I might have helped out in some little ways with somebody."
I think you did. I think in multiple ways, in multiple industries. I know that's true.
Well, let's before we get braggadocious here,
Okay.
we don't want to stay
It
away from
doesn't
that.
count if I brag on you,
Yeah,
though.
that's okay.
Doesn't count.
Well, hey, we're going to close by just saying, hey, Hempin ain't easy,
Hemp
and
ain't easy.
thanks for joining us.
Thank you.